Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Cosmic Panel, where today it's me and a new addition to the Cosmic Panel, Balti.
What's up?
Uh, Elias couldn't handle a little blood, so he can't watch Invincible,
He's gonna
especially.
hate this last episode if he. I don't know. I don't know if he's still planning on finishing
No,
it.
probably
Probably not. But
this last episode was.
this one is specifically. I even wrote that down. I was taking notes watching this,
It was.
and I specifically wrote down Elias is gonna hate this one.
But before we get into that,
Yeah.
overall, this season has been really interesting because it's finally it fixed a lot of the problems I think of season 2. Also, by the way, spoilers galore for Invincible season 3. If you have not watched it, please turn this video off, go watch it, cry a little bit, come back,
Yeah.
and then we can further discuss this.
Yeah. That's what we did 5 minutes before sitting down for this. So
Yes. So I have a question for you, Balti. Have you read the Invincible comics?
no, actually.
Okay, so that's actually really interesting. I read all of it.
Yeah, I haven't even read the first one, and I own it. And
That's funny.
my brother even has it's at my house right now because he recently moved, but he even has a graded issue 2.
That's crazy.
I own a bunch and I just haven't read it yet, and I promised myself, I said I'm gonna read it before season 3 comes out, and then here we are. So
well, luckily season 4 is already in production, so it'll be out probably by next year also.
yeah.
Or I guess half a year because season 2 ended this summer.
Yeah.
Crazy that it was so fast. But I mean, the wait between season 1 and 2, it makes sense that they
Yeah.
This
And
is-
there was, I know for the past 2 seasons, people have been complaining about the animation and stuff, and I see some of what they're saying, but also, look, if it's coming out every year, every half of a year, I'll take a little bit of a hit for that.
I think so. The reason why I
personally-
think people were mad about that was because the animation was poor, but also they were still overworking their staff.
Yeah, it was
And
poor,
it is-
overworking, and there were 2 years in between, and it was where's that time going?
Yeah, and also the fact that it is quite literally the richest company on earth
Yeah.
producing it. So it's
Yeah.
it's not like they can't just throw money at the problem and hire more people.
Yeah. I don't support overworking your staff, but if you're
Yes.
going to, I'd at least like to see why. The animation didn't look like the staff was being overworked to me. at
Yeah,
least.
which feels really guilty to say, but yeah,
Yeah.
season 2 was rough.
Yeah. Don't overwork them if
Just hire more people in general.
Yeah,
just
hire more
that's
people, 'cause
really
it's clearly not making a difference.
yeah,
It's
that's
not
really
making that much of a difference. It's not like you have something and then you look at stuff like Arcane, which is
oh my god, yeah.
amazing animation and story and everything, and they're not overworking as far as I've
Yeah.
heard. They're not.
And they're a smaller
very
studio. They
pro.
definitely have less money than Amazon.
Yeah, they're very, from what I've heard, that studio is also super they're very vocal about that stuff, anti-AI, anti-overwork and stuff like that, and that looks amazing. So it's you're overworking to get stuff that's not as good.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how this ages, especially because so one major thing that I always had a gripe with was the teaser being so well produced, and in the season 2 coming on, it was wait, I thought the teaser showed a really cool art style update. What
Yeah.
happened to that?
I will say something that I noticed about this most recent episode is something about the animation quality just shot up from that one episode.
This
Was
was
crazy.
the episode they were saving for.
Yeah,
straight
that was clearly
So you have to understand, as someone who read the Invincible comics, this is the first big fight. Top 3 in the series. People have been waiting for this fight. As you can obviously tell,
Yeah.
well worth the wait. It is just as brutal in the comics. Literally, they took the ending exactly from this fight, from the comics. Mark just bashes his skull in till Conquest dies. Dies. I'm sure that won't have repercussions or any other bad
No, it won't come
downsides
up.
later down the line. Cecil's a very smart guy. Surely it wouldn't possibly be a bad thing, right?
Yeah, it's.
I'm
That's
sure-
a whole other. Everything Cecil does is I understand why, but it never works. It never
Cecil-
works. And at a certain point,
You can't say that though that Cecil hasn't literally given everything.
yes, and I don't know if we're planning to go through every episode specifically, in order or anything, but I think
Yeah, I mean, we
was
can talk about
episode
it.
2.
Yeah,
That's
like
kind of the point of that.
he literally gave all his skin
Yeah.
to the survival of the world.
Yeah, he gave everything. And I mean, that's episode 2 was basically, just the Cecil episode. And of course, it had Mark and stuff because it had to, but it was about Cecil.
I think this season has solved my biggest gripe with season 2, which was the biggest problem I had with season 2. The reason why I think season 1 is so good is because they had an A and a B plot. Arc
Yeah.
was usually the A plot, Nolan was the B plot. Having that B plot consistently happen makes the story so much more engaging. Especially because Mark is usually doing some like standard superhero stuff. Like that is the point, you know?
Mhm.
Season 2 solely focused on Mark, and you could tell that the story was kind of struggling because it didn't want to move away from Mark, but at the same time it wanted to touch on other characters, and it felt like it was forcing itself.
And you have to sometimes, because in every story, there's going to be a low at some point. That's just how a good story tends to go. You need the lows so that those big fights mean more. And it's hard to do that in season 2, where you can't leave Mark, so you got to either sit there with him doing nothing or just have him constantly doing something.
Yeah. So this season, though, I feel the B plot, the one that was really good, was two things. And Mark's relationship with Eve. They weren't always taking the front and center, but it really helped highlight those moments where like the plot was happening, like for example with the dragon.
I agree. I think there's also, I would say, and I mean, we're starting to stretch the meaning of B plot when we're adding so many, but another one I feel like is that this was very much a Rex season, obviously ending with
They had to give him his final
Rex's
swan song.
Yeah, his final thing. Very much, and it was like one of the last scenes of the season in general was like his whole funeral and stuff is like, it was very much building up Rex as, I guess, an example of what the non-Mark superheroes are doing and like what all the stuff that they have to go through.
They matter. That's the thing. They matter. And just because we're not always seeing them doesn't mean that they're not just as important.
Yeah, and sometimes they do have it rougher, just because Mark gets punched by the tougher guys doesn't mean. I mean, like the whole, again, not having read the comic, finding out that Rex was essentially just like grown in a lab or the equivalent, or like bought off his parents or whatever.
He was bought off his parents and
that's heartbreaking.
Experimented on by the government.
Yeah,
by the CIA.
That's heartbreaking, and it adds so much more, and it sort of goes back retroactively to those first 2 seasons and goes, oh, that's why Rex was such a shithead,
because he literally never had a childhood. He never had a role model. Like this is a thing that I hope they do eventually. I'm hoping that they're going to do this. You remember the Adam Eve special?
Yes.
So there were 2 specials in Invincible that were really important. There was the Adam Eve origin one, which they ripped off exactly from the page to make for the show. And then there's the Rexplode special that actually goes into his backstory and how he meets Eve. Eve is his first person he ever meets that isn't part of the CIA Black Ops group. She's the first person he ever meets that is literally not a soldier or out to use him as a weapon.
Wow, that's really cool.
And it's like,
I hope they do that, because they probably won't if they're just going full steam on the next season.
Though, because if they're trying to make Eve like reflect on him, I think you could easily make her reminisce.
I mean, especially after this season is the time to do it, when he's fresh in everyone's mind as like everyone has such an attachment to him now, and everyone remembers him now. In that, if you do it in a season or 2 from now, when he's already dead and there's going to be minimal mentions of him,
there's going to be too much stuff going on.
Yeah, there's going to be too much. Yeah, especially with the
half of the pots cooking in the background.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, I tried writing that down too, like all of the stuff that they left for the next season, and I wound up with
Satan.
7 different threads that they could follow right there.
And that's the great thing about this. So the great thing about this comic, the show, and the reason why I think it's actually a way superior adaptation than the comic is because Robert Kirkman, I was about to say Cookman, he's cooking, but he has room to let the story breathe. Like, you have to understand, in the original series, the whole Omni-Man reveal and a twist of like him beating up Mark happens, I think, in like 5 issues. Like, it's so quick, and you feel you don't even have enough time to be like that attached to Nolan.
It's just like the setting. Yeah, I think, and I see that a lot in like any sort of comic, web comics, or Marvel, or Image, or whatever comic. It's different because you have a schedule, you have the things. It's you got to pump out an issue every month for most people, unless you're the
Exactly.
fucking Saga people. You have to you have to pump out an issue every month or every however long, and at a certain point you're writing before you can think about it, before you can go like, this story can loop around here. So I think this is a good chance for him, and I think he said that. I saw an interview where he said that, where he said this is a good chance to sort of go back and clean up some of that
Oh yeah.
was a good idea, but you don't think of it in the moment. Like if I'm trying to make a story right now, in a year's time, I don't know where that story is going to lead. It gives you a chance to revise that, which is, I love it.
Yeah.
It's great. As someone who never read the comics, it feels very tight to me, because it feels, I can imagine that sort of going back and cleaning up some of that looser stuff that maybe doesn't flow as easily because it's hard in the moment.
Yeah, season 2 for me was I think also another downfall of season 2 was because of like him realizing that like those issues in the comics were kind of boring in comparison to what he does later on.
Yeah.
Like there's like from here on out, it's just straight gas like we're going
Yeah,
100 miles per hour.
fighting the Viltrumites, which I'm going to assume is the majority of the plot. I from like the little I know about what happens in the comics, that is the majority of the plot, and they have some other stories, but like they're really side stuff.
You'll be surprised. There's so many shenanigans. There's so
Yeah.
much more than just the Viltrumites.
Yeah, it feels, and that's actually something I was thinking about with this season. This season spends a lot of time sort of like doing side stuff. Not in a bad way. It's just, I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about how necessary it was for them to sort of go, we need to pick up the pace and get these seasons out faster, because if you're doing a season every 2 years, I'm sorry, I do not give a flying flux. I do not give a fuck.
A flying fuck.
I do not give a flying fuck about Mark going to play bowling with William, and about seeing Amber or whatever. I do not care about like the whole Powerplex episode is like,
You didn't enjoy that?
no, I did.
Oh, okay.
I did.
I got worried
but
there for a
I
second.
would enjoy it a lot less if I
If it
knew
was-
that I'd have to wait another 2 years, because you're
That's
wasting
fair.
one of our precious 8 episodes on a guy who honestly does not advance the plot, on seeing what's going on with Amber that much. Again, I don't
Yeah,
know the
yeah,
future,
yeah.
but as of right now, it doesn't advance the plot. So
he
it
isn't
would be
as
frustrating.
important.
Yeah, it would be frustrating. Like, I'm going back to looking at some of what I wrote for the episode. Like, Multipole. As of right now, Multipole is kind of useless towards the main Viltrumite. Like, you would really have to melt a lot of that down and edit a lot of that out if you were making it longer. But I like that it's shorter, because you can spend time with some of the
What a
filler
fucking
episode stuff.
brutal cell escape, bro.
Jesus Christ, yeah.
Fucking hell, man.
He is.
This season, I genuinely think was the goriest of all the previous seasons.
Kate's all there like, oh my god, I suffered more than all of you, and then Multipole's just like killing himself just like to get out, to maybe get out. Like, he's and this season was the goriest. But I was actually talking about it. I was talking about it with my dad after watching, because he watched it with me, about how it feels deliberate.
Yes,
like all the gore is very like, they show you when you really see it, when they show you.
Yeah,
they don't show you when they don't have to.
Yeah, like so the reason why it's so much gory, and this is a major thing in the comics, Mark changed his costume. That seems like a super small thing, but in the comics, it basically signified, no, this story now is just we're now dark. We're no longer no more training wheels, you know. But yeah, let's just go over some of the episodes. So like the first episode, You're Not Laughing Now, I think is so good because it's bringing back Doc Seismic, who's like a character that's like okay, but it's making him more interesting. And then we build up to basically Sinclair and Darkwing getting revealed that they're being used by Cecil, which that is so much setup to get that one moment.
Yeah,
like you have to set up Darkwing, you have to set up
that's multiple episodes worth of stuff, which again, I mean, I'm sort of proving myself wrong with when I say this, but it works. It's kind of what I was saying, where if you have to wait as long, you don't get to set that up as slowly. That stuff doesn't matter as much. Like, you don't have the patience for Powerplex, which I can assume with the amount of that they built him up, he's gonna be someone like Seismic or something where he'll come back later and mean a lot more. But you wouldn't have the patience for that, and I like that because it's sort of like you never know what's gonna happen. It's sort of
spoiler alert: Seismic keeps coming back.
Yeah. I mean, like the Mauler
which is
twins.
really funny. It's like it becomes an ongoing bit that he doesn't fucking die.
Yeah, well, kind of like the Mauler twins for a while. For two and a half
the Mauler
seasons
twins
were just like they're introduced as some random C-list villains,
They
and
were
then
literally
they just come back again and again for the most important shit every time.
They're literally the reason why the quote unquote like Guardians of the Globe come in and like fight in the first episode is literally because of them.
Yeah, it's them. It's what do they
Wizard
do?
League
They
or
clone Robot Rex, whatever his name is.
Yeah,
now.
they cloned Rudy, who's now
Rudy.
Rex, which that is also a super important thing in the comics because it's like showing that like Rex Robot is now becoming more and more of an actual person.
Yeah.
In his own right, like he's no longer just robot anymore.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with Monster Girl is also a plot line that is going to be developed very, very soon. I'd be surprised if they don't really start gassing it up next season and then it pays off at the season after that. Because he is very important for the late game series. But really great episode. And I love that we got the training session with like Mark where it like showed us like, yeah, we're pushing him, but we don't have anything like it's getting to the point where we don't have anything left.
Yeah, and still he
gets his ass whooped.
Yeah, he gets his ass whooped. So it's like
to be fair, Viltrumites literally get stronger the older they get.
Yeah,
which
you know we'll get there, but Conquest,
Conquest is literally the oldest Viltrumite. So it's like there's only one other character that's stronger than it. One other
character or Viltrumite?
Okay, yeah, you're right. One other Viltrumite stronger than him.
Because I feel like theoretically Eve is...
No. You're right. Episode 2, Deal with the Devil, dealt with a lot of Cecil stuff. And I really loved it. I love the idea that like Cecil had like the thing for his ears installed. There was the thing with the white room. And Cecil keeps just trying to diffuse the situation. And you can empathize with him as you're getting the flashbacks. But at the same time, it's just like, this is such a fucked scenario.
Yeah, it was very like Cecil is a really great addition to the sort of like
dynamic
Nick Fury and
Amanda Waller,
yeah, where he's kind of in the middle where he goes as far as Waller, but he still has the good intentions of Fury. I feel like Fury wouldn't necessarily, he wouldn't go that far, but Waller is also just kind of straight up evil sometimes.
Waller is just straight up evil and doesn't care about humanity. She cares about the US.
Yeah, and so
that's her line.
And he's a really interesting middle ground where like you kind of agree with him sometimes and you're kind of like, well, that's a little too far. And it's a good like space to live in where the audience can't really decide whether they like him or not. Cause Mark can't either.
Yeah. Episode 3 though, you want a real costume, right? We get Oliver naming himself Kid Omni-Man, and his brother tried to explain to him why that's an awful idea. And then the reveal that he kills the Maulers that same episode. He gets introduced. It's so fucked. And the great thing about Oliver is because he's aging so fast, he processes stuff so much faster. Like he learns so quickly. So Mark and Debbie have to be so careful, especially in the comics too. It's like emphasized that like they have to be so careful with what they teach him and what they say to him because he's basically like a toddler soaking in all the information, but at the like growing at the speed of like every day is a different month in his life cycle.
Yeah, and it's I think it also had like the really interesting balance, and the next episode too when Oliver shows up again, and actually the rest of the season whenever Oliver tries to fight, it's really interesting like how much he processes, but he still doesn't have the experience. There's some things that you can't really like tell someone, they gotta just learn, and it's really interesting seeing him like really latch onto some things really quickly, faster than even Mark, and then in other things just not get it.
The last episode, just to cut. Man, bro, after experiencing that, I wouldn't after almost being literally ripped apart, I'm done, bro. I'm tapping out of everything.
And I'm really interested they didn't in that episode but I wonder if
Acknowledge
they're
it.
going to do it next season. Yeah, acknowledge it, and sort of Debbie gave him her blessing. Said go out there. The only time that she said, "Yeah, go out there," and he
Almost
almost
died.
dies.
Was Debbie? That was the worst time to give me your
Yeah,
blessing.
that was out of all the times to sort of like trust him. That
Literally,
was not it.
dealing with the Invincibles would have been easier than that.
Yeah, anything. I wonder if they're gonna do that next season. Have sort of not that I want Debbie to have, not that I want Debbie to have any more guilt, but that feels like one that maybe she should feel a little bit concerned about.
I mean, she poured her heart out near the end, where she was like, and I love. So Debbie has so much more character in this series, and it's stuff like this that like makes me really love the show, because like in the comics, she's just an alcoholic that's in the background, basically. Like she practically almost drinks herself to death, and that's like basically her plot line. Like Mark is trying to save the world, and every now and then he comes back home, and she is passed out drunk, and like that's what she's relegated to, and it's really really sad until like later in the series where Kirkman is like, okay, wait, actually, like Debbie's like an interesting character, like I should explore her more. And then, but she only ever gets to be interesting when Nolan is involved in the story.
I really like in this how she's very much like the moral center of everything, of Mark, of Oliver. Like when Mark can't explain why it's bad that he killed the Mauler twins, like she just immediately just cuts into it, and then Oliver gets it. And with Paul, oh yeah, wait, episode 3 is Paul too, right?
Yeah, so episode 3
another Paul
is but this Paul is way better.
2 Pauls in Invincible and 1 in Spider-Man. We're getting
but this Paul is way better.
Yeah, this Paul, the only one that we actually like.
Yeah.
Dripped out every time too.
But I was going to say though,
even Paul, like whenever Paul is being nervous, like Debbie just gets it. Like Debbie just, and I really like that.
She's so much more of, like you said, a moral pillar, and the fact that like the reason why she was able to break it down so easily for Oliver, she had to do that for like 18 years with Nolan.
She's a mom too.
That too, but also
being a
like
mom, like you just figure out how to explain stuff to kids.
That yes, but like Nolan literally had to learn everything. Like she had to basically break like Earth culture down to the barest essentials whenever she was explaining anything to Nolan, let alone her own son. So it's like she knows, one, she knows how to treat an alien, and 2, she knows how to treat a growing kid. So it's like both of them, it's like, oh well, this is a cakewalk. But I was gonna say another character that I really did love that they expanded on and fixed was Rex, because he's basically an incel in the comics, like straight up. Like he's the worst. He's genuinely the worst. He gets a whole like heroic death, but everyone was kind of like, okay, well, at least he died. But in this, he is so much more engaging. There's no thing with Shrinking Ray. Shrinking Ray is actually a dude in the comics.
Oh, really? Wow.
And does die. Does die when getting swallowed by the Cobra guy. So, but anyway, it's way worse because he actually pops out of the guy's body. Like, he does kill the guy, but it's like his body's like completely like...
Ooh.
Yeah, no, it's way worse.
Yikes.
Which I'm glad that they toned that down.
Yeah.
Anyway, episode 4, though, we got to deal with Mark going to the future and seeing Immortal, which is really important. And then I love that we get to the halfway point and you're like, and it's showing the credits and you're like, wait, what?
Yeah, I thought it was done. Genuinely, I wasn't watching the time with that one. And that episode is one of those that feels like a lot. Like, it feels like your like 40 minutes or whatever is done by the time you get to that halfway point, just because it's so heavy. And there's another 20 minutes left.
Yeah, with Battle Beast, Nolan, and Alad. And I love that they further develop these characters. Battle Beast is very important.
Yeah, I had that's one of the few things that I knew, that Battle Beast is like a top tier character in both importance and power.
Top 3 in the universe, probably.
Yeah, and like so it's interesting seeing more of him, because you know he's just kind of a throwaway in season 1. Right?
Yeah, well, he's supposed to. Yeah, he's just used as like a goon in season 1.
Yeah, which is really funny. Which is like Kingpin just kind of hires Thanos, for example. Like
no,
he just kind of like calls him up and he's like, "Yo, Thanos, I'm having a lot of trouble with Spider-Man right now. Can you just beat him up?
Can you just like actually atomize him?
Yeah, can you just I don't care how you do it. There's Spider-Man and you're Thanos. Just get to it."
And it was the first time Mark
$50
got hurt, like really hurt. too. That was like he actually had to go to the hospital and everything.
That's the first time I think most of those Guardians got
Yes,
because it was the new Guardians.
Monster Girl literally got almost dead.
Yeah, that was like the first time that happened to her.
Not Black Lightning. Black Samson. I was gonna say Doc Samson.
Yeah, who was supposed to be, invincible up to that point. Not the character, but
Yeah.
Like he was supposed to be. Well, he was supposed to be on Invincible's tier. They were talking about him like that, and he just gets his ass kicked too.
Yeah, and the thing is, he had been depowered. Like that was like part of his origin story was that he got depowered, and now he got his powers back. But because of that. But love that.
Yeah.
Episode 5. And we're gonna start breezing through this because I feel like this really just starts like hitting the ground.
These episodes. One last thing I want to say about episode 4 though was that had the big reveal of there's only 50 Viltrumites.
Yes, that
50
did.
Pure Viltrumites, but 50 Viltrumites.
The thing is, they don't procreate unless it's so. The reason why Nolan was sent to Earth was to find a species to procreate that he could procreate with, not to conquer Earth. Because that is very easy for him. The problem was they wanted to reproduce more Viltrumites.
Yeah, which is why they're so pissed about Oliver, because he's impure or whatever.
Exactly. And so them finding Mark, he's basically a pure-blooded Viltrumite. Yeah. And like everything but like the smallest smidge. But yeah, so episode 5, though, Eve and Mark talk about getting their own apartment. There's the whole thing with the prison, Titan, and like we get more payoff to like the whole like multi-pole stuff. We get payoff to Titan. We get payoff to Machine Head, who hasn't been seen since season 1.
Yeah,
like this is a lot of stuff that we got a lot of interesting movement on.
And that's something that I really like about this season and the show in general, but this season, how much they make you care about these side characters.
Yes.
Where you're like, man, I really like Titan. Dude, I'm really a fan of Shrinking Ray.
Yeah.
You couldn't say, like...
Literally couldn't.
But they give all these characters enough time and enough space and enough personality, each of them, that like Machine Head and Titan, even though they're both kind of like Kingpin characters, they're completely different.
Yeah, like Titan is very much like a Luke Cage-esque character that's like now become like, like you said, the Kingpin but like for the community.
Yeah.
While Machine Head is like a more traditional like Wilson Fisk-esque
Wilson Fisk, but he's a lot more
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
Because he's so lame.
Yeah, and he's kind of crazy.
But, episode 6, though, all I can say is, I'm sorry, Powerplex, pretty wild. I love, though, that they make season 1 have consequences. They give a number to the amount of people that died. They give a name. And I love that they just let Mark sit in it. Easily, they could have been like, and then Mark fights Powerplex at the memorial. But no, Eve is like, no, you shouldn't be here. Like you shouldn't appear as Invincible, and you shouldn't be fighting today.
Yeah.
Like you mentally are not ready for that.
Because there's also bigger things than just, it's gonna sound stupid when I say, but there's bigger things than saving lives, for these characters. Like there's bigger things, like Eve can do it too. Eve can save these lives too. It's more than just, Mark, you're there, you do it. You have to also, and I mean, that's part of the problem is with Powerplex, I guess that's him learning, like, it's more than just saving people. You can save people, and still people will hate you. Still you'll cause problems, because you'll save some people, you won't save others. There's a little bit more about it. And I think that's definitely was and going to be important going forward for Mark to understand, especially as more Viltrumites coming, is like when every Viltrumite is just slamming you through a crowd of people, you need to really think about how and where you fight them and what you're doing.
Yeah, literally. But I was going to say, though, I also love that Eve quickly figures out how he's powered up.
Yeah.
She's not stupid. She's very intelligent. She's like, I kind of figured out that you're getting power from being like punched.
Yeah, which like no one else figured out at that point.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, cool, thank you. Someone noticed it.
Yeah, and I also like that the show didn't tell the audience that either, at least not directly.
Yeah, they didn't until that moment.
Yeah, until that moment. Like, you can kind of figure it out. There's kind of clues, but it didn't, like...
Like, the wife just hits him with a baseball bat, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know that going in.
Yeah, and you're sort of like, are they just testing if he's strong now? Or are they, like, charging him up? Or, like, what are they doing? And then that's the, like, yeah, no, she was right.
But having that episode, and then having the episode right after of the Invincible variants, That's so good. That's so good because it goes, it's not Mark's fault, to literally, it's all of Mark's fault.
Yeah.
Like Mark is just having the worst time because now Rex is dying. Everyone in the world is suffering because of variants of him. His family's in, like, the entire world basically has suffered a literal alien invasion of just him.
That's what I was going to say. It's basically a test run of the Viltrumite invasion.
Literally.
And how bad it is. And like how... And they said... What did they say? They said there was like 18 of them in the beginning.
There was like
And
13, yeah, 13 or
there
18
were
of
like
them.
13, and then at the end there was like 7. They
Yeah,
couldn't
there was
handle
like,
that. If all 50 Viltrumites decided to show up, if half of them decided to show up, I mean, they couldn't handle Conquest. They couldn't handle like 13 Invincibles. Like,
and
it's sort of a...
Invincible isn't that strong from those
Yeah.
universes
And
because
those ones they explicitly said were weaker than their Invincible.
our Invincible is
yeah.
like literally like 3 or 4 times. Like he can take out 2 or 3 of them at once.
Yeah.
Like they show that in the show.
Yeah. And they still just whip everyone, including Mark.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it's and then also bringing back Angstrom. Angstrom was
Yes.
great. I really did love that. I love like seeing him throughout the other episodes with cameras.
Yeah.
The thing with like the whole surgeons. Did you think he was genuinely dead? Like before?
Yes, I did think he was genuinely dead.
I don't blame you. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that at first I was a little bit annoyed that he was back because I was kind of like, well, what the fuck was the whole point of that? But as I was watching it and as I was seeing it, I was sort of understanding, like, it sort of puts into perspective these types of things where Angstrom and now Conquest, like, you're fighting people on levels of like, they do not die. You leave a trace of them and they will come back and fuck your shit up.
And that's the point of the season.
Yeah.
Literally at the end, Mark goes, if anyone threatens my family or someone I love, I will kill them.
It's really interesting watching this back to back with the first couple episodes of Daredevil because they sort of have opposite morals in their stories.
Literally.
where Matt's trying everything he can to not be
kill.
super violent and not kill. And Mark, the moral of this story is, yeah, sometimes you just kill someone.
Yeah.
Sometimes, what was that meme, that like Steven Universe meme from a while ago that was like, I think we're gonna have to kill this guy, Steven.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's basically what this season was for Mark, which is just like, Mark, sometimes you just gotta kill him.
Also, Steven Yeun, bro.
Yeah.
Man's getting that paycheck.
Yeah, he's
man voiced how many variants of himself?
Yeah.
On top of like giving such a phenomenal performance every episode, and especially the last episode. Everything built up to this. We got basically the Nolan ass beating, but like 10 times worse.
Yeah. And even straight up, like with just him ramming through like the crowd.
I was gonna say, it's literally the same idea, except way worse.
Yeah. And even with Mark fighting back, which I will say, and I wrote that down, Mark's getting better at fighting Viltrumites and like really powerful people. Angstrom, he sort of, clowned on a bit. I mean, he did clown. I mean, he made him run away, which he was not able to do before.
He lost very badly against Angstrom the first time and Angstrom played with him the first time because he could have easily just like killed him like with like one single portal to like one planet would have been done. Like he was playing with it. This time he couldn't get Mark once with a portal.
Yeah.
Like Mark was very much better.
So he's a lot better at fighting like the really strong people. He still obviously got his ass kicked. I mean, he won in the end on this one too, but he is better and he is like, I mean, he at this point like could give Nolan trouble. I don't know if he would necessarily beat him at this point. We haven't seen that matchup yet, but he would definitely give him trouble. It would definitely be a fight instead of what it was the first time, which is just he's getting dragged around by
It's this series. The great thing about the name is that it doesn't refer. It can refer, but it doesn't refer. It doesn't usually refer to the fact that his power. It refers to the fact that he just refuses to stop fighting.
Yeah.
That is what's invincible about him.
Gets his ass kicked every fight this season. I don't think there's a single fight where he actually like...
I mean, the Constitution fight.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I guess that. But there's not one where he like wins straight up. Like he loses the fight with the Doc Seismic. He is getting his ass kicked by the Mauler twins.
He loses to Powerplex by letting the the wife and kid die.
Yeah, Powerplex. I mean, Powerplex, he sort of let
It's a
himself a
moral
little bit because he
loss.
didn't want to fight him. Yeah, it's a moral loss. That one, I guess Powerplex and the Mauler twins, like, he could have if he tried more. He was a little distracted. But, like,
Yeah,
most of the fights, he doesn't. The big dragon guy,
yeah.
you know,
He would have fucking died.
he would have lost if it wasn't for Titan and Machine Head. But, like, he's still going.
Yeah,
And that is a big,
that is. It's the equivalent of I can do this all day, but just
Yeah.
taken to the nth degree.
yeah.
But this last episode though, Conquest is. I love that they adapted him exactly from the comics. He's a sociopath, straight
Yeah.
up. Like in the comics, he's a sociopath. He plays with Mark because he wants. Like that moment where he makes the heart in space.
Yeah.
Like I
That
don't
was
think if
so
that's
good.
something in the comics, but that's very in character for him from the comics, where he would just be like, this to him is his lovemaking. Like
Yeah.
this is the closest to like sexual relief he gets because he's
Yeah.
such a sociopath.
And the writing was good, but Jesus Christ, Jeffrey Dean Morgan killed that.
Yeah.
He was so good. And I mean, that episode was really just
The Negan
him
the Negan and the Glenn
Steven.
rematch we didn't think we needed.
Yeah, it was just him and Steven. Pretty much that episode was like the majority of just them, and they
Screaming at
both
each
did
other.
so good, and just like the chemistry and all of that was really good. And that moment, that like sort of almost tragic moment of Conquest, sort of being like, I'm so lonely,
Yeah.
and like no one likes me, and it was so great because you can.
He's being honest for the first time because he
He's
genuinely
being
thinks he's
honest.
about to kill Mark.
And it honestly, it makes I don't know about you, but it made me. I was kind of like, I feel so bad for him, especially in
After he just killed so many people.
Well, yeah, you still feel bad, and you're like, why are you feeling bad? And then what was it? It was episode 4, right, with Omni-Man and Alan.
Yeah, with Alan.
And you sort of learn that the Viltrumites have this culture of like they don't really care about each other that much.
No, like they're
and
happy
then
that
tying that back in where you see it, and you're like, that is sad. That is sad.
It's
Like
a
I know
pathetic,
he's gonna.
it's a pathetic culture.
Yeah,
it's a very like it's basically an incel based culture where they just it's just toxic masculinity driven up.
None
to
of
the
them are
nth
not
degree.
even the Viltrumites, for all their like, oh, we have the best medicine and science and peace and all that stuff. They're miserable. Nolan didn't know love until Earth, and none of them. They just it's a really good thing to have in the back of people's heads, because then even later on when they're committing these horrible things, you're kind of like, this sucks for them too. This sucks for
Weirdly enough,
everyone.
Yeah. This is just an awful scenario.
Yeah.
The cycle of violence.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say though, the whole fight with Conquest, the brutal nature of it, the way that Eve joins in and starts holding her own, and then very much switches. And
yeah,
I'm sure you freaked the fuck out, right?
Yeah. I mean, I loved Eve actually fighting at her power level and acting her power level, because there's a lot of times where Eve sort of like, it's hinted that she's like really strong, but then she like struggles with fucking, I don't know, Mauler twins or whatever, and you're like, well, okay, this is a little. And they do that sometimes with Mark, but you see more of Mark.
Yeah.
And so Eve actually, especially again ever since the Eve special, I've been sort of like, where's that Eve?
Yeah,
Where
where's
she's
that
a
power?
little kid kicking ass, where she turns Dr. Manhattan in the middle and like is all like, I could see the molecular gastronomy,
Atoms.
whatever. Like I could see everything. Like
I can see the covalent bonds.
Yeah. Like where sometimes I'm like, where did that go? We could really use that with like Viltrumites, and it showed up, and it really, she went full Dr. Manhattan for a second and just blasted him, and I like that.
Yeah,
that
she
was really
literally flayed
awesome.
him.
Yeah. And then of course he gets up anyway, but
yeah, but like, I mean, to be fair, what's a little skin to a man like that? But yeah, the way he just like impales her, and like the minute that you see him punch her, you're immediately like, no.
Again,
and then he impales her.
I was more confused because I knew I had a gap where like, I know she's there very later on. I've seen the comic stuff where like they're full ass middle-aged and stuff and together and stuff. So and I wrote it down again. I was like, either she revives herself, which she did, or
clone.
They go to a different universe and get another Eve, or they clone her or something. And I was like, very much like, okay, so I know Eve is at the end, and I know she just got killed here. What happens?
Yeah.
And yeah, it was crazy.
The fact that like Mark breaks his leg and then he punches Conquest. So there's
Yeah.
the thing of like when you no longer have any self-preservation, you can use your full strength type of like idea. That was Mark basically doing that.
Yeah, and he
He
didn't
didn't care if
have,
his bones broke at that
and he
moment.
didn't, in his mind, Eve was dead.
Yeah,
So he didn't have that either because he was a little bit, and I thought it was interesting when Oliver showed up too. He fought a little bit harder to protect them, but he also was distracted. I mean, Conquest even said it, like a little distracted by worrying about them.
keep your eyes on me.
Yeah, keep your eyes on me, and he fought harder, but he also was distracted. And I think once he thought she was dead, like he doesn't care about himself. He
Yeah.
doesn't. There's no one else around for him to protect anymore. It's just him and Conquest, and
I know the
he
future
went
and you
feral.
don't.
He
I
went
know the
feral. He
future.
was biting him. He was like, it was
He says, "I know the future and you don't live to see tomorrow."
that was raw as
That's
hell.
right from the comics
Yeah,
too. And no, he just like he breaks both of his arms and he just headbutts Conquest till he dies. And I was gonna say, crazy that both fights with Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Stephen Yeun ends with one of them having their head split open.
yeah, yeah. He got revenge.
Literally.
Yeah, he got payback.
So crazy show. There's so much setup. The last post credit scene is very important because that's not something that happens in the comics. Dark Blood is supposed to be just a spoof. Like, he got way more prevalence in season one. He was just supposed to be a spoof of Hellboy. Like, that was his bit.
Yeah.
He was supposed to be a spoof of Hellboy and John Constantine. That was his bit.
So you don't know,
I do know who they
or
might be referring to, but I
Okay.
no confirmed idea. But if it's the character that I think it is, we are in for a very, very how do I put this? Mark is going to feel a lot more guilt than he is currently feeling.
Yeah.
Like, and it is going to be deserved this time. That's the thing.
Yikes.
Which is even worse that he's like this time it is going to be
Yeah.
well deserved that he
Mark,
gets this
this
guilt.
season, Mark cannot win. I think he wasted all of his like luck on getting Eve and having Oliver not be like genocidal or killed
didn't
because the other
remember if-
option was having Oliver go full Nolan and just be like, I don't care about any of this shit.
Yeah, I didn't remember if because I don't know if I hallucinated this about like Oliver losing a leg, but I think maybe I was confusing that with Eve.
Maybe.
But I thought he was about to lose a leg when like.
But she got it
Conquest.
back anyway. So
I'm very excited to see how Invincible ages. I mean, they're planning like what 8-9 seasons, and I can say they have enough content to do that. Like,
yeah, and it has more room than something like The Boys, where at a certain point, like you got to just cut to the chase and just get the final thing. This has a lot of room to sort of breathe and take their time on stuff, and it won't get old very quickly.
If the ending didn't tell you that there's so many plot lines happening, like literally every other word was just like, and here's this plot thread.
Yeah, and everything is like,
oh, you guys forgot about this character?
Yeah, and then who even knows? Because I mean, again, I haven't read the comics, but at this point, they're doing stuff where like Seismic is important, or like random side character from like that showed up in the fucking supermarket is gonna show up. Like at this point, it could be like, oh man, that guy at the bowling alley is the newest supervillain. It's like,
so Amber's boyfriend actually becomes this character named Mega Nuke. And just kills everyone.
Yeah.
No, but it's like Kirkman.
What's his name? Business Baby comes back. And
Kirkman is really good at writing, especially nowadays in comparison to how he was, because Invincible was like his first big series before Walking Dead.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
He has the TV experience now too.
Walking Dead was his test run, basically.
Yeah, with Walking Dead, you really.
He saw how to fuck up a series really quickly.
Yeah, he saw the sort of. I think he definitely learned the balance between like fan favorite stuff and like stuff that will make fans happy and stuff that's good for the story.
Yeah,
and faithful to the story. Because Walking Dead had some stuff that was great.
Rick should have died seasons ago, and Carl should have lived. Cough, cough.
Yeah, so some stuff was great, and some stuff was not great. And I think he's found a good balance of like, let's get more Rex because people like Rex versus like, okay, now we got to kill him. We can't just let him live forever.
Guys, we should dedicate an entire episode to duplicating Immortals.
Yeah.
No. Luckily, they don't get a full episode, which is nice. Like they're in the background, but like I like that.
Yeah.
Like Kirkman's also like, yeah, you kind of don't like them because they're like that awful coworker that you try to avoid.
Yeah. I mean,
Like,
again, so was
they're
Rex.
good people.
So was Rex.
So was Rex.
You know what? At this point, he's earned the trust where, like, if you do
Also,
an Immortal and Duplicate
hey,
episode,
he's Abraham Lincoln.
I'll give you that chance. Well, yeah.
You also can't be mad at Abraham.
Yeah. I mean,
you're
but
literally.
he got too old and he brought slavery back. So.
Oh my god! I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, Abraham Lincoln.
My god.
He got so old that he was like, let's give it
became
another try.
reverse
Let's
Abraham
give it another
Lincoln.
try. Maybe I was wrong the first time.
He's like an Ouroboros. He like eats his own tail and brings
Yeah.
back slavery.
Yeah. He's like, run back the hits.
You know what? Let's just keep running back the hits until Mark shows up.
Yeah.
But also very frightening glimpse at the future. I'm sure that isn't accurate at all to the future of the show. I'm sure everything is going to turn different from that timeline, right?
Well, here's the solution: just don't make Immortal king. There.
I mean, surely we can just kill Immortal again, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
actually, goodbye.
Yeah.
Remember to like, subscribe, support your local comic shop, and read comics. See you next time.